Welcome to the Monday Night Raw review on this Tuesday, February 10th, 2026. Hope you're enjoying your day or your evening as we roll through the week here and try to get through February. If you are in the northern part of the country, well, I think you won't be sad when February comes and goes. I know I won't be. So that said, we do have Elimination Chamber coming up in a couple of weeks, so that's something to look forward to. This week we had a few more of those qualifier matches, and of course a very devastating injury to Bron Breakker that I don't think anybody saw coming, and we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. But first, I want to welcome you to the show and give you an opportunity to go ad-free and get our biggest sale of the entire year by using code CHAMBER. When you check out, it'll give you 50% off your first month at patreon.com/WWE podcast. That's 50% off your first month if you use the code CHAMBER. So before we get going, I want to give a quick shout out to somebody I haven't heard from in a while, and do enjoy conversing with them, and hope all is well across the pond, several thousand miles away. That is Shahar from Israel. I hope you're doing well, because long-time listener, and I appreciate your support, and also want to give a shout out to her partner's YouTube channel. It's called Clothesline IL, and they are obviously based in Israel. They have weekly TV reviews, PLE reviews, nostalgic PLE reviews, and more. They've got over 1,600 videos on YouTube. So pretty impressive. If you want to check them out, please do so. They do a great job over there on Clothesline IL over on YouTube. So let's get moving on to the Monday Night Raw review now, starting off with devastating news with the Bron Breakker injury. That is certainly hard to swallow if you're the fans of Bron Breakker, but most importantly, if you're Bron Breakker himself, it's got to be horrible. I mean, from a fan perspective, it stinks because we're right at the precipice of WrestleMania season. I mean, we're here, but you're really starting to get into the meat of it now and thinking about who could face who. And this injury happens in really a silly way, which WWE tried to tell us was when he was training, but I think reports say otherwise. And it happened during last week's show when he flipped over the announce desk. He herniated himself when he was trying to flip over the announce desk. And so regardless of where it happened or how it happened, that's all semantics. I mean, the result is the same, and that is Bron Breakker is out. Now, how long? I've heard estimations from at best 6 to 8 weeks, at the most pessimistic 6 months. So we could be looking at anywhere from just at WrestleMania to SummerSlam, depending on his recovery and when the doctors clear him. Now, what he does have going for him is he's not an old veteran, battered and bruised up. He's a young guy. I think his body will heal quickly. He's in otherworldly shape and has a drive that you can tell will assist him in getting better quicker and making it back to the ring as quick as he can. So if you put that all together, what do I think is going to happen? What's his timetable? If you were to press me, I mean, I'd love to see him back in time for WrestleMania to have a match with Seth. I don't know if that'll happen. I would say I'd lean on the side of caution and say after WrestleMania, sadly. But I would give it a 1 in 4 chance that we see him at WrestleMania in just a limited capacity, spearing Seth Rollins in a match with whoever he's going to face now. And is there still a chance that he faces Seth Rollins and they have enough time for a build? I'd give it like a 2% chance in my mind, based on what I've heard and, the recovery time. And it's already mid-February, and all he's got to have, he's gotten, another 8 weeks until he can actually make it until WrestleMania. But that's my guess. So devastating injury for the Vision. That does, if you want to look at it as a silver lining, which we really have no choice but to do, that does offer the opportunity for others to step forward. It's an opportunity for Bronson Reed to step into the spotlight in a much more prominent position. You have Logan Paul, who I think needs to do a little bit more work as well, and Austin Theory, who has been largely silent up until this point. I mean, so it does provide opportunity. And I think that if you are in the vision, you say, okay, cool, our leader's out, our big dog's out, but what can I do to put the spotlight on me the next 6 to 12 to 6 months? I mean, who knows, right? For however long Bron is out, I now have the opportunity to have the spotlight on me. That's what I'd be thinking. They have to think that way. So, okay, well, that all said, let's jump into the actual details of Monday Night Raw. And Michael Cole opened and said that Cleveland was hosting Raw for the 31st time. His stats are so crazy. Thank you, Cole. We then had Punk walking backstage. He meets up with his wife, AJ Lee, and they walk together. And a bunch of other shots of Rhea and Io and all the rest. We then have the Bron Breakker announcement, as I talked about, and Becky Lynch come out and fumed over seeing AJ Lee backstage. Lee had her entrance theme play, and then she skipped around in the ring before coming in. And she asked Lee what she's doing on her show. And Lee said she was there to support Maxine. So before we get started in this segment, that overall, I have to say, was uneven at best. And that may be being kind. Why would you have the crowd see AJ Lee backstage before she appears in the arena? The pop would have, I mean, what's the difference? She's going to come out a few seconds later. I think it muted what reaction she could have gotten, in my mind. So yeah, that made no sense to me. But this is not where things get weird. It gets weirder. Lynch said Lee is like a little chihuahua. She keeps barking in her ear, yapping all night long and ruining her life. Lee said she hasn't done anything personal to her other than beat her twice and cost her the Women's Intercontinental Championship to Dupree. And Lee said she kind of gets Lynch's point, but she considered it water under the bridge. And a maniac Lynch, or a manic Lynch, rather, both are kind of true, what she needed to do to get rid of Lee. And she mentioned the Elimination Chamber taking place in Chicago, and Lynch asked if AJ wanted to see her ruin her life in front of her friends and family and bloody her. Lee said Lynch was either manic or wanted to face her in a singles match. And Lee said, hey, I haven't had a singles match in over a decade. It would have to be something special. And she questioned Lynch and saying that maybe if she beat her, it would mean that she's better or the number one contender. And Becky Lynch said that Lee had done nothing to be the number one contender. She said, fine, no title, no match. And Lynch then completely flipped her position without any kind of real persuasion and said, okay, fine. Essentially agreed to it and stormed out. And Lee smiled. Okay. AJ Lee here. I'm generally a fan of in ring, not outside the ring, but in ring. She's captivating. Usually she's very good on the microphone, but in this case, she came off like a goof. It's the equivalent of when John Cena tries to be funny. That's not your strong suit. Stay away. AJ Lee, well, I don't need her serious all the time, but whatever this personality was that she put on air was weird. It didn't fit. It came off forced, kind of like this shy, coy, conniving version of her. I don't know what it was, like a mix of 4 different personalities here with AJ. I didn't like it. Becky Lynch, I think, was a stronger performance here. Just getting frustrated and having Lee be a constant thorn in her side. Did I enjoy Lee? Or rather, did I enjoy Becky Lynch instantly flipping her decision? No. Right? I mean, there was essentially no convincing her. And then all of a sudden she was just convinced. Whatever. The same thing happened with Adam Pearce later in the night with Punk and Finn Balor. We'll talk about that too. But yeah, AJ Lee here came off like a goof, and I'm a big supporter of her character in ring, but not this time. I'd give the award to Becky Lynch. If we're giving out awards and promos here, this one would go to Becky. And this is just a weird version of AJ. And there are a lot of people also mentioning that she looks a lot older. And I looked at some of the photos and things, and she kind of does. Like when she first came back to WWE, you didn't know what you were going to get in terms of how often she would be in the ring. And we're getting our answer now. It's very few and far between is the answer. But she didn't look like she aged a day. And now I have to admit, I look at some of the photos and I'm like, huh. It looked like she aged 6 years in about 6 weeks. And obviously she didn't. But I don't know if it's the makeup or whatever, but I have to concur with that. You know, she for whatever reason, maybe the lighting and the type of makeup she's using wasn't particularly flattering. Whatever, right? I'm just calling it like it is. Yeah, I don't know what happened there, but it was not a great segment for AJ. It wasn't a disaster, but it got the job done. You know, it's not going to be something that we're going to remember. And it builds to AJ versus Becky one-on-one. And that's what we all eventually wanted anyway, right? We were looking forward to that. And we finally get a one-on-one matchup, AJ Lee versus Becky Lynch. And it's going to happen, I believe, at Elimination Chamber. Where else? I would think. Okay. We have our first match of the night now with Jimmy and Jey Uso taking on Otis and Akira Tozawa for the World Tag Team titles. The match went 10 minutes exactly with the Usos winning because there's just no other possibility here for an outcome. With Jimmy and Jey losing, it would have made no sense. But okay match. You know, fine match to open the show, setting the tone. Kind of a standard title defense. Nothing really revolutionary happening here. Seeing the 1D on Otis was kind of the payoff. You know, you're wondering, can they do it? Jey Uso seems to be sliding right back in nicely to this role. It's a demotion for Jey, but it's a promotion for Jimmy, who just, you know, over the last couple of years has essentially been a non-factor in things. He's been flopping all over the place. I mean, if you were able to plot his like track record over the last few years, you'd be like, wait, he was a heel, a babyface. He turned on Roman, was back with Roman, turned on Jey, and then he's back with Jey. You know, it's all over the damn place. You know, disappear, he come back. So for Jey, this is certainly a promotion, but for Jey, it's a demotion, but for Jimmy, it's a promotion. But for Jey, it's there's no other way to look at it other than just, hey, I was world champ just less than 4 months ago, and now I'm back in the tag team division. They stripped me of the belt after WrestleMania. The fans were about to turn on me, but he's in a safe position. They put him back in his safety zone, in his comfort zone. And you know what? It works. The Usos just work. So let's continue with the broadcast team here. Cole gave Graves a hard time about him and Saxton wearing similar suits. I don't really care. Liv and Dom then come out, and Dom stopped Liv when she started to address the crowd. Dom got a bouquet of roses and a heart-shaped box of candy from ringside and gave it to Morgan while labeling her the greatest Royal Rumble winner of all time. And she said the fans could take a lesson from Dom with Valentine's Day approaching. And that's when Stephanie Vaquer comes out, and she told Morgan she talks too much. That's interesting coming from, as they say, that's rich coming from Stephanie Vaquer, who, you know, doesn't say a whole lot at all. So I don't know if they see the irony there. Morgan asked Dom what she said, and Dom said he didn't think he would want to tell her what she said. And Dom spoke to Vaquer in Spanish, being kind of her translator. And Morgan wondered what Dom said, and Vaquer claimed that Dom said he's a little B. So that was not a bad segment. I have been very critical of Stephanie Vaquer and her inability to communicate with the general viewing audience that is generally English speaking. Not everybody, but I'm talking about the general base audience does and solely speaks English. So therefore, you're kind of alienating a large portion of the audience who has no idea what you're saying. So that's a problem. So I've been critical of that, and I think she should continue to work on being able to speak English. All right, and that's just a fact. Why would you not want to be able to speak with your fans, your consumer, essentially, the people putting money in your pocket? A little bit of a motivation there to continue to learn the language that they speak. You know, the expectation that we should learn Spanish, that's not how it works, right? There's something called assimilation, which means you assimilate to the overall culture. We don't assimilate to your needs. And the overall needs outweigh your inability to speak English clearly and coherently and consistently. That's just the way it is, you know? I wouldn't go over to, the middle of Mexico and tell everybody, hey, listen, you need to speak fluent English. No. You learn to assimilate or you leave. That's the end of it. And Stephanie Vaquer here, I think, would benefit from it. Now, she can still continue to do what she's doing and have a nice run, but I don't think she'll reach her full potential unless she can do it and learn to speak English. I mean, that was one of the big hindrances of Shinsuke Nakamura. Yeah, he had an issue there. They overcame it with subtitles, but that still only gets you so far as well, because you have to do backstage vignettes. You can't have live subtitles with an in-person crowd. So, you know, there are ways around it, but the most ideal scenario to maximize your potential is to certainly just learn basic English. That's it. Yeah. So that said, it was still an effective segment because of Dom Mysterio, essentially. I mean, he was like, he was the connector. He was the one that made this whole thing work well because he can speak Spanish. So they were yelling at each other, and then it got a little comical, but it was effective for as effective as it can be with a non-English speaking, champion. And yeah, I know she speaks somewhat basic, but hey, her accent is so thick. If you don't really pay attention, it's hard to understand. And that sucks, because I want to understand what she's saying. And I don't want to hear anybody, oh, you learn Spanish. No, she should learn English. Okay. I'm the consumer. She is in a primarily English-speaking audience and talking to a primarily English-speaking audience. Guess who has to assimilate? Not me. It's not incumbent upon me to understand what you're saying if you're the one trying to get my money. Not how this works. Anyway, but here's all that said. I am a fan of her in-ring work and her presence. She does have a nice presence, a unique look. She's not quite goth. She's got a darker makeup, which I like that. It makes her stand out a little bit more, not to like Rhea Ripley level, but she's got a nice, unique, differentiating look to her. I can't quite put my finger on it, but so there's certainly, it's not going to stop her from being successful, but I think I made my point. Rhea Ripley then takes on Lyra and Ivy Nile in a triple threat qualifier for the Women's Elimination Chamber match. Match went 9.5 minutes with Rhea winning, earning a spot in the Elimination Chamber match. The finish was Ripley hitting her finish on Nile, who slipped out and hit Ripley with a backstabber. Valkyria hit her Nightwing finish on Nile and had her pinned, but Rhea Ripley hit Valkyria with a running knee strike, and Ripley followed up with Riptide and pinned Valkyria. So this is a good match, and it wasn't all just about Rhea Ripley dominating. So many of the matches that Rhea Ripley has had in the last 12 months, up until the point that she was in the tag team division, was all about Rhea Ripley being dominant and scary. And Rhea Ripley has, I think, kind of been humanized a bit and brought back to earth a bit. And it's not all about her and her stature and it's mommy, right? That's kind of gone away. And that's okay. Things evolve. And that's what wrestling does. That's what life does. But it was nice to see a little bit of focus on Ivy Nile and the way she was presented in this matchup. And Valkyria as well. Now, it wasn't just essentially Rhea and anyone else. It was Rhea and Ivy Nile and Valkyria. Lyra, I mean, they did a nice job. I would have liked to see this go on even longer. And I think it made all the women look good. Even though Rhea Ripley won because she's the bigger star, and would have been kind of silly to have anybody else win. Not impossible or angering by any means, but I think Rhea Ripley is the right choice here to put in the Elimination Chamber for obvious reasons. Okay. So Cole then plugged Cody Rhodes and Jacob Fatu and Sami Zayn for a qualifier on SmackDown on Sci-Fi. Then in some clubhouse, I don't know the name of the clubhouse, but Dom held his face to sell Stephanie Vaquer slap, because that's right, Stephanie did slap Dom during that segment. Liv tried to comfort him and said Dom has a chamber qualifier next week, and Dom said he has to defend his championship. Dom said he knew Balor was upset about losing to Punk in Ireland, but JD would be back soon and they could go after the tag titles. And Balor said he's going after the world title. And Dom said with Punk versus Roman at WrestleMania, Balor's window might be closed. And he said he thought they were supposed to be family and added that he's tired of being an afterthought. So as much as I criticize and essentially ignore this group that should be dead, this was progress in the right direction for the eventual Dom Finn Balor program. There's no chance of Finn Balor beating CM Punk. I don't care where it's happening. And then, anytime before WrestleMania, CM Punk's not losing. Let's just call it what it is. Punk ain't losing the belt. He may lose the match, but he's not losing the belt. And I think it's going to be Finn Balor, Dominic Mysterio, because that match has been brewing for years under the surface now. Ton of material to work with, ton of history you can pull from. These two have been through it all in that group that shall not be named. So when it finally happens, and it seems like it might be because Finn's tired of being an afterthought, it's exactly what he's been for years in that group. Years. A talent like Finn Balor has been essentially pushed aside for other things going on that were not nearly as important or silly. Okay. So then Michael Cole stood in the ring, and Finn Balor came in after he was about to introduce Punk, and he took the mic from Cole. Balor said Punk is hurt. He knows Punk is hurt because he's the one who hurt him. He said he wasn't going to step aside and let Roman Reigns take advantage of his kill. Balor recapped Reigns using the top rope when he had him beat during a past match. Balor said he wants the world championship. He said Punk beat him on his own home turf, and now he's going to beat Punk on his. Adam Pearce comes out and says no. Pearce had 3 security guards accompany him to ringside and said it wasn't going to happen. And Pearce told Balor to leave the ring or he'd have his men remove him. Punk comes out, and Balor hopped on the broadcast table and Punk said to Balor that he doesn't deserve a title shot. He deserves an ass whooping. And he invited Balor to face him in the ring. And Balor said he wasn't going to fight for no reason, and he wanted a title shot. Punk put the belt on the mat and called for him to face him. And he wanted to kick his ass in Chicago, or if he wanted him to kick his ass in Chicago, then he will. And Pearce said no. And he wasn't going to jeopardize the WrestleMania main event. Punk knelt between the ropes and got face-to-face with Pearce and told him to give what he wants, or he'll spend the rest of his show chasing Balor and kicking his teeth down his throat. And Punk told Pearce to make it official and then asked the fans if they wanted to see it. And then he's like, no, fine. I mean, you tried this logic anywhere else in just the working world? Just saying essentially that, I'm not going to do what you want me to do. Just, tell your boss that. Just essentially threaten him with violence against other coworkers. And he's like, okay, fine. I guess you can get what you want. He was so adamant it's not going to happen. But also, how are you're jeopardizing the WrestleMania main event by having Punk face Balor and defend his championship. But if CM Punk were to compete in the Elimination Chamber, he wouldn't be jeopardizing the WrestleMania main event or any other match. What makes him facing Finn Balor 2 months before WrestleMania jeopardizing the WrestleMania main event? How does that differ from any other match CM Punk would be in between now and April 16th? Silly logic, but that's what I do here. Okay. So we then have Punk asked, jeopardize. I'm not jeopardizing anything. Michael Cole, what am I doing? What I'm doing is building something. What I'm doing is chasing something, and that something is greatness. And he has to say, and make sure everybody knows he's a fighting champion. So stupid. So stupid. Can I just, if I only had 5 minutes on the phone with creative, including with Paul Levesque on the line, I would ask, this would be one of the things among a few that I would cram in that 5 minutes. Why is it necessary that every time a babyface is champion, they must declare to the viewing audience that they are a fighting champion? Explain to me why that has to be said every time, and I will come back to you and tell you why that is a horrible idea, and it undermines every character that says it every time. I don't know why it's some kind of law that the company puts in place or you'll be executed on the spot. All right. I am just so fed up with some of these predictable lines that are fed to every babyface that wins a championship, and every heel that also is champion has very specific traits that no matter who you are, they must follow X, Y, and Z. So Punk said the greatness that he's chasing is the story he told over 10 years ago. He recalled being champion for 434 days. He said he's trying to be 1% better every single day. Oh, shut up. He said he would fight anyone at any time to prove he's the best in the world. Yes, okay. He said that without risk, there's no reward. And he's brave enough to put the title on the line for the fans because he loves them. I'm sure you do. And they deserve it. Oh, we deserve it. So look at, does it get any more just transparently fake or pandering than that? He's telling us he loves us. He's telling us we deserve things, that we're essentially entitled to that, entitled to these things. He's trying to be a better person every day. Oh, well, gosh golly, Punk. I think the soup kitchen down the street from me is open if you want to volunteer this weekend. There's also a children's hospital, I think maybe 5-10 minutes from here if you want me to throw your name in the hat. There's an old lady, I think, that crosses the street every morning at 7:30 in my downtown area. I can have you be introduced to her. You can help her walk across the street, maybe take out her garbage, bring her mail for her. Read to some kids at the hospital on your spare time. Anything else? Maybe start throwing out meaningless inspirational quotes generated by AI, much like John Cena's account. That he does that every 5 minutes on his account, which is really, that's another story. Hey, why not go all the way with this crap? Okay. He said he's humble enough to know that it could end at any night, but he's confident enough to know that S ain't gonna happen. Oh no, he's back to being edgy. He said the S word. Ooh, oh my. And look, I like Punk's character. I do. I think and his talent is speak for itself. It does. I'm not saying he's not talented. I'm not saying he's not very good in the ring. Is he the best in the world inside the ring? No. I don't think so, but he's very good, clearly. He's the champion. He's one of the faces of the company. I'm not going to pretend he hasn't had success. Of course he has. But I think it's more of the presentation of what WWE wants every babyface to have. They must have these certain these certain attributes to their character. They must do this, this, and this. It's formulaic, and it makes every babyface champion feel like it's cut from the same mold. I like a little edginess in my characters. Maybe I have a babyface champion that says, hey, you know what? I'm champion, but I killed myself to get this, which means I'm not just going to hand out championship matches because you demand it. I understand everybody wants to be a fighting champion, but you know what I value more? What this championship means and who deserves to get a shot at it. That's what a babyface champion should say every once in a while. Be a nice change of pace. Okay. He said that also he doesn't believe Roman Reigns hates him, and he doesn't think that Reigns hates what he's trying to build. He hates that he can't do a damn thing to stop it. And Punk said the one way the match ends is with the ring announcer saying he's still world heavyweight champion. So, Yeah, the crowd, by the way, were not happy because the way that the promo was constructed, we had the name of the town, Cleveland, the city, mentioned right before Adam Pearce said that Punk and Finn would face each other for the World Heavyweight Championship. And it kind of was, the fans were led to believe that they might have been getting a title shot tonight because the following the name of their city was the announcement of the championship match, but then he said in Chicago. Ouch. Yeah. Oh man, that stinks. But let's see here. So we then had, I'm going to continue. I'm trying not to go through every little thing like I do every week here. Pearce shifted the focus to Theory having a chamber qualifier, and Pearce asked Heyman to do him the favor of the Vision not getting involved, and Heyman asked if it was a request or a declarative statement. Pearce told Heyman to consider it a threat. Heyman said it was FAFO. You're damn right it was. And Pearce said after Heyman and the others were out of the picture, okay. We got Maxine Dupree versus Natalya. The match ended only after a minute and a half because we had Natty. It was a double count out. What happened was Dupree took Natty down, put her in an ankle lock, but Natty escaped. Dupree put Natty down with a spin kick, and Natty ran her into the ring steps and put Dupree on the broadcast table and then worked her over with punches while the ref counted out both wrestlers. Then afterward, Natty put Dupree in the sharpshooter while they're both on the broadcast table, and then AJ Lee comes out to try to come to the aid of Maxine. And Natty released the hold and exited through the timekeeper's area. And that's when Becky Lynch shows up and ran Lee into the broadcast or into the ring post. So good. Solid segment here. Got the job done, albeit brief. Nothing like having to remind people what your name is by putting the name of yourself on your own, ring attire. That doesn't happen too often. When is the last time, and maybe it's just a real obvious answer and I don't know. When is the last piece of ring gear that was worn that had the name of the person of like your own name wearing your own merch? I mean, okay, Austin 316, but that's Austin 316. It was a catchphrase designed from actually a biblical verse. It didn't say Steve Austin on it, but has anyone ever wore ring attire? Not merch. I should even clarify. Not merch. Ring attire that has their own name on it in big bold letters. Has anyone ever done that? I don't know. I'm sure there has to be some stupid obvious answer, but I don't. I mean, maybe The Rock. Didn't The Rock's trunks say Rock on it or something? So I could be just blowing smoke up nothing here, but this segment was fine. Again, it accomplished what it needed to. Puts Natalya in a further heel role. They try to make Maxine a little more sympathetic, and they're trying to, I guess, reinvent Natty one last time, and trying to do something with her. I'm all for it. Fine. LA Knight was featured in a promo video. He recalled the Vision putting him on the sideline with a backstage attack. And he talked about taking them out one by one in the Rumble and said Breakker got off easy by taking himself out. And Knight said he will do everything he can to take away everything he can from the Vision members. Good stuff by Knight here. Solid to the point. It's classic, just textbook wrestling promo. Not classic, but textbook. Javon Evans and the original El Grande Americano take on Bravo and Rayo. The match went 7.5 minutes with Javon Evans and the original El Grande Americano beating Bravo and Rayo in 7.5 minutes. As I said, after the match, Americano Kaiser put Evans and the original down with a clothesline. He went after the mask of the original, and that was that. So, solid match here. Solid match, 7.5 minutes. The OG cutter was clearly the move of the match here. We had Evans tag out, hit a dive on Rayo, and then the original hit a top rope headbutt on Bravo before pinning him. Not a fan of the headbutt. I mean, I have to say, I know I have to like nitpick everything. I have to make everything negative. I don't, but things that are easily correctable, I think, need to be called out. I'm a big fan of Chad Gable. I like the fact that Kaiser's getting some work, beyond being dumped by Tiffany Stratton. I mean, he's got something, he's on television, albeit under a mask. But the headbutt just generally needs to be relaxed a lot. I know Rhea Ripley does it too. It's not her finish, but she does a lot of headbutts. Imagine slamming your skull into anything full force. Even if the purpose of you and the intent of you doing that is to inflict maximum damage, you can't perform a headbutt in any capacity without taking a lot of damage yourself. Now, the person you're hitting is going to be hurting more, but you could easily still knock yourself out. It's not my favorite, especially a diving headbutt. I mean, Chris Benoit was famous for that, and he made it look good, but it is kind of a high risk move as well. Most people don't look at a headbutt as a high risk move, but you're landing flat and you are trying to aim your head. One wrong little twitch or turn, and you are going to crash your skull right on the mat or on an opponent that you could severely hurt. So I'm not a fan of it, just from a logical perspective as well. But it is what it is, and Chad Gable's one of the best pure wrestlers WWE's ever had. He's just so good. And anytime you need to be reminded how good Chad Gable is, just go watch his matches with Gunther. I wouldn't mind that being resurrected for a month or two. I would love it. But anyway, Javon Evans also had a good night, as I said. Really good. With Evans from the heavens. That's a great line by Corey Graves. Good stuff. So, let's see. We then had a Obafemi vignette. Again, they're trying to remind you, hey, this guy's here. He's not going anywhere. We've got plans for him. That's why they continue to put vignettes on Raw every week. But he hasn't yet decided to sign with the brand or what brand he's going to sign with. He said you'll hear his drums, see his strut, and know the deed is done. So obviously big time factor here. As a side note, totally unrelated, but while I remember, apparently WWE has invited Stone Cold Steve Austin to the WrestleMania Vegas, like not the pre-show, but there's a wrestling, what is it? I'm going to type this in. There was news, hold on, Vegas, WrestleMania 42. He's going to appear at WWE World during WrestleMania weekend. And he's going to be there April 16th, April 20th in Vegas. So that's interesting. If you're looking for any kind of evidence that, hey, could he have a match? Do I dare say, could he have a match? I think it maybe the bare minimum. He'll be there for a stunner, an obligatory WrestleMania stunner, I hope. But could you get a match out of Austin? I mean, that's pretty significant evidence. The fact that he's going to be there, that's not speculation. He's going to be in Vegas. It was put out by WWE's account, not just some random, news reporting website that's trying to get clicks. He's going to be there. And do I dare start the rumor mill here? I mean, does it originate here? What I'd like is Austin versus Lesnar. It's still possible. The fact that it's even still possible in 2026 is mind-blowing. Austin Lesnar should have happened back in 2004, or even earlier than that. It was supposed to happen in 2002 with the infamous walkout and all the rest. And the only interaction they ever had physically was in 2004 before WrestleMania and at WrestleMania 20. So a good 22 years. And this is still something they haven't done and still something they could do. Austin said on the Chris Van Vliet podcast, he feels like he could go. Austin has said many times before on record that the one guy he wishes he could face if he ever did come back or had the aspirations to would be Brock Lesnar. They've teased it over the years with Paul Heyman on the Broken Skull podcast when Austin was doing that on the WWE Network for a few months. And now Brock Lesnar's back in the company. He's active. Austin is guaranteed, or at least advertised to be, at the Vegas WWE World for 4 days. He's going to be in Vegas at WrestleMania. All the cards are there. I don't need to wait till Saudi. Do you know how many more tickets that would sell? Do you know how many tickets that would sell? Austin versus Lesnar, with Lesnar still in his prime because he just can't ever fall out of it. And with Austin, who is, I think, more than capable of having a serviceable match, almost to the level of what he would want it to be. I know he has high expectations for himself, but I mean, we saw what he did with Kevin Owens and he did just fine. With Lesnar, you don't need to go 20 minutes. You could just go 12 minutes and call it a day. And it would, I mean, just think about the box office on that. I'm not trying to start a rumor mill, but when you look at the evidence and the environment is primed for it, you have all of the chips where you need them to be. Now you just need to just put them together, get management behind it, see if Austin would be willing. You know, Brock would be, and Brock's more than ready. It would all come down, I think, to Stone Cold, to Steve Austin, Steve Williams. Would he want to do it? Could he do it? That's something that you'd have to really, look at, and obviously it would be up to him. But anyway, wishful thinking, maybe. But if you're looking for an Austin matchup, Austin Lesnar, there hasn't been a scenario lined up like this in a very long time. I don't even know the last time that something like this lined up with all of these factors in place. All right. Again, I don't know if that's going to happen, but that's what I'd love to have happen. Okay. So we have Byron Saxton interview Gunther, who said he didn't care about Dragon Lee. He said his focus is on WrestleMania. And Saxton mentioned Gunther has an Elimination Chamber qualifying match next week. And that was that. So we have next week on Raw, Gunther versus Javon Evans versus Dominic Mysterio on a triple threat qualifier. Asuka versus Bayley versus Natty in a triple threat qualifying match for the Women's Elimination Chamber. And AJ Lee will appear. Okay, Penta versus LA Knight versus Austin Theory in a triple threat qualifier for the Men's Elimination Chamber. The match went 13 and a half minutes. LA Knight wins after he defeats Austin Theory and Penta. Why? Well, the Masked Man strikes again. They just are continuing on. I know it sucks with Bron Breakker out, but the Masked Man continues to strike, and he struck Austin Theory with a stomp. That allowed LA Knight to then hit the BFT 1, 2, 3. LA Knight wins. So LA Knight is in the chamber. And the Mystery Man continues. I will say they have been really overusing this. I mean, we all know that it's probably Seth Rollins. If it's not, no one else really makes sense. So it's got to be Seth. But fine. LA Knight wins. And you know what? Is there a case to be made for LA Knight to win the chamber? Yeah, there's a case for him to win the chamber. There is. I mean, LA Knight has been a guy that the crowd has been behind for years now. His support has not wavered. He's over with the crowd. He's got a connection with the crowd. He can cut a good promo. He can go in the ring. The only thing he's got going against him is his age. He's not a young pup. They can't really build around him for decades to come, but he can still go. He's, for some reason, I guess the rumor, so I don't know if I should really even be reporting rumors, but the rumor is that Triple H doesn't like LA Knight, and he doesn't even know why. That's apparently what's making the rounds. Take that with a grain of salt. But LA Knight, he can't ever say, it's like this ceiling that LA Knight has over him that WWE has artificially put over him. There's this cap where he can sniff the main event. He can sniff that championship, but that's as far as he's going to get. He can feel his fingertips on it, but they're never going to let him hold it. That's the feeling I get. It's that infamous commercial with the fisherman holding the dollar bill on a fishing line, and someone's trying to grab it and he pulls it away at the last second every time they try. He's like, oh, you almost had it, right? You know what I'm talking about. That famous, it might be Geico. I'm not sure who it is. But that's how I feel it is with LA Knight. They are dangling it in front of him and in front of the fans, and they will not pull the trigger, and they have no plans to pull the trigger. Which is a shame. I could be wrong, and I hope I'm wrong, because I would love to see LA Knight as champion. I want to see what he can really do when he's pushed in that position. And really, the fact that he hasn't been champion is kind of a crime, given all the support and the sustained support that he's had over the years. But I think that he would be a fine champion for several months. All right, that'll do it for me on the WWE podcast. If you want to go ad-free, patreon.com/WWE podcast is the place to go. That's patreon.com/WWE podcast. Use the code Chamber at checkout to get 50% off your first month. Sales ending soon, guys. So use the code Chamber to get 50% off your first month over at Patreon. And that'll do it for me. I'll be back later this week with your mailbag. So send in those emails. I'd love to read them. Mailbag@WWEpodcast.com. We'll get you on the air. And those of you on Patreon, of course, I will read your emails first. Alrighty, that'll do it. Thank you, everybody. And we'll talk next time.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.